So when you look behind me and you see this picture of United States President John F. Kennedy, you're probably telling yourself, oh, she's an international relations student. Is she going to talk about the Cuban Missile Crisis? So why not? I'm not going to talk about the Cuban Missile Crisis. Instead, I'm going to talk about one of Kennedy's favorite quotes, and this is actually, you can see it in his library. It is very cool. And this is a quote from Dante's Inferno, and it goes like this. The hottest places in hell are reserved for those who, in times of great moral crisis, maintain their neutrality. And this is a great quote, right? It is very, very impactful. It is always relevant to many people. It is beautiful, and it is also completely fake. Not only did Dante never say this quote, but he actually said things that are contradictory to this quote. So today we are going to talk about two things. The first is what made this quote so popular, and we're going to talk about who was Dante Alighieri, what is the Divine Comedy, and what is so influential about the comedy, and as a result, why is this quote so influential? And the second thing we're going to talk about is how to tell that this is fake. And we're going to talk about three ways. And the first one requires the most familiarity with the source, the last one the least. And it is going to be where do the neutral souls go? What's at the bottom of hell? And what's the hottest places in hell? I will say that since the comedy is so popular, many people are more familiar with the second way than the third. But if you have no idea what I'm talking about and you just want kind of general vibes, the third way is for you. And my main source is this article. It is great. I highly recommend reading it. It also talks about how this quote was actually coined and popularized in the US. And I highly, highly recommend it. We're not going to talk about the history of the fake quotes here. So if you are interested, give it a read. It's short, it's simple, and it's fascinating. So first we're going to talk about who is Dante, what is the Divine Comedy, and why is it so influential. And so Dante was an Italian poet who, in 1321, so 700 years ago, wrote an epic poem called the Divine Comedy. An epic poem is a poem that is very, very long, and I actually do have the first part, Inferno, here. You can see that this is a book, so the full poem is about 3 times as long as this one. And in this book, he takes a little guided tour of the afterlife. And first he goes to Inferno, which is hell, and this is the most popular part of this comedy. Second, he goes to Purgatorio, the purgatory, this place between heaven and hell. It's a bit complicated. And thirdly, he goes to Paradiso, he goes to heaven. And as I said, Inferno was the most popular. The entire comedy is extremely influential. It has influence on culture, on language, on literature, on theology, on basically every part of our culture today. You can somehow attribute it back to the Divine Comedy. But one of the most important things about it is that the first part, Inferno, is the most influential description of hell we have to this day. Actually, many of the modern descriptions of hell are taken from this comedy and not from theological texts. So basically, you can say that Dante he invented hell as we know it, with the way it goes down and the circles. These were new concepts, and Dante invented them. So you can pretty confidently say that Dante invented hell. And if the man who invented hell is telling you where the people who are neutral go, so he knows because it doesn't matter what the priest says, it matters what Dante says. Dante is the one that has the word here. And this is why this quote is so influential, because basically what Dante said in his book is the canon of the world and nothing else matters. And this is why this quote has become so popular, because you cannot argue with Dante. What Dante says is the truth of the world. However, Dante did not say it, and we're going to talk about how you can figure out that he didn't, and what did actually he say about the comedy. So before we delve into what is wrong with this quote, I'm going to read it once again, and it goes like this. The hottest places in hell are reserved for those who, in times of great moral crisis, maintain their neutrality. So we are going to focus again on three things. First of all, where do people who maintain their neutrality go? Second is, what is the worst place in hell? And third is, what is the hottest place in hell? So when we talk about the parts of this quote, we have neutrality once, and we're going to talk about the hottest place twice. So let's go. And for our convenience, I have made an infographic of how Dante envisioned hell. So you can see God is above, the devil is below, and the 9 circles of hell are in between. And using this infographic, we're going to talk about how this quote fell short of reality as Dante described it. And the question is, where do the neutral souls go? And we do get the answer in Canto 3, so chapter 3 of the comedy, in which Dante and Virgil, his escort, are at the gates of hell. And Dante is hearing terrible screams and whines. And he's asking Virgil, who are those? Who are those voices? And Virgil answers, and I'm going to disappear so you can. The miserable fate suffer the wretched souls of those who lived without praise or blame, with that ill blend of angel mixed, who nor rebellious prove, nor yet were true to God, but for themselves were only. From his bounds heaven drove them forth, not to impair his lustre, nor the depths of hell receives them, lest the accursed tribe should glory thence with exultation vain. So basically, what he's saying, in simple translation, these wines that you hear, these souls, are the neutral souls. The people and angels who chose neutrality, they are cursed with not being accepted into hell, but not into heaven either. So they are stuck in between heaven and hell forever, and their punishment is that they are always at the gate. As they were neutral in life, they are now neutral in death, not good nor bad, and they are suffering immensely because of it. So if you ask where the neutral souls are, you can see them here, right? So we have God, we have hell, and we have the neutral souls in the middle. So this answers it. But if you want to have simpler reasons to know that this quote is fake, except for the fact that we have just seen where the neutral souls go, we can look at the circles of hell. Let's focus a bit on the circles. So we have 9 circles in hell: limbo, lust, gluttony, greed, wrath, heresy, violence, fraud, treachery. So the 7th is with some additions. Limbo is just not being a Christian or Jewish. And the last circle of hell, the worst place in hell, this is treachery, and this is where the devil is. And the devil is actually munching on the most treacherous people. Now you're asking yourself, who is treacherous? Are those treacherous people people who remain neutral? No. These are for actual terrible betrayals. The people he's munching on, and you can kind of see the feet dangling from his mouth, are the people who planned the assassination of Julius Caesar or Judas Iscariot that betrayed Jesus. So this is not just neutrality, this is evil, terrible treachery that we're talking about. And obviously, the neutral souls, their sin is not as bad as those of the terribly treacherous. And so, back to the infographic, we can just see that the last circle is treachery and not neutrality. And the last way that we're going to talk about when we come to see that this quote is fake is how hot hell actually is. If you see down here in the picture, the devil is actually frozen up to his hips in a frozen lake, and every flap of his terrible wings just makes the storm colder and colder. And as Dante believed, God is warmth. God is the sun. You can see it in the picture. God is the sun. And the farthest away you get from God, the coldest it is. This is actually one of things that Dante did write down but did not survive history and culture. So hell in Dante's vision is very, very cold. And you can see, I have also made this an infographic. You have the rays of sun coming down, and the lower you go, the colder it gets. So technically, are the neutral souls in the hottest place in hell? Well, relatively yes, right? Because it's placed just outside of hell is the hottest place in hell. But I'm pretty sure this is not what the person who coined this quote intended when he came to write it down. Because as we remember it, hell is getting hotter and hotter. And for Dante, it is getting colder and colder. The devil is basically frozen by now. And this is it. We talked about who was Dante Alighieri, what made the Divine Comedy so powerful, and as a result, what made this quote so powerful. And we also talked about 3 ways that you can recognize that this quote is fake, ranging from knowing what the text is in the cantos and just knowing that hell is very cold and the hottest place in hell is not a very bad place. So, can we say that we are smarter than one of the greatest United States presidents? Absolutely not. But we can be a bit more careful when we decide our favorite quotes and the quotes that will be remembered along with us. Thank you. And these are my sources. You can email me questions. I guess I will not answer, so have a good night.